Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Ushanka Show. And I promise you, very soon we will return to the stories about life in the USSR. Before we begin, I would like to thank everyone who reached out to me asking about my family back in Ukraine, who helped me with their tips, their super thanks. I have some people just mail in cash. Thank you so much for your support. I send in this money to Ukraine. I try to support Ukrainian army, so thank you so much. One of the ways you can support Ushanka Show is by purchasing my book, American Diaries 1995. It's available as ebook or paper book on my site, sputnikov.com. So today I want to share with you one interesting, it's not really a document, but a couple days ago, one guy from Russia sent me this story, I would say, and it was so interesting, almost hilarious, that I decided to translate it into English. It's pretty much, it's called How Chinese Government Explained to Its Citizens About What's Going On in Ukraine. There's a curious short disclaimer in the beginning of the story that says, we have to mention that emotionally, people of China are always on Russia's side, no matter what. I find this disclaimer quite curious because looking back in history, back in 1858-1860, so during the Second Opium War, Tsar Russia forced the Manchu dynasty to give up 1.2 million square kilometers of land in Manchuria, using the fact that China was defeated by Anglo-French forces. And that event considers like the triumph of Russian diplomacy, because without a single shot, without a single Russian soldier's lives lost, Russia took over a giant territory in Manchuria, and that's how they got their Vladivostok, the main port in the Pacific Ocean. But I don't think China looked at this event as some kind of good thing that happened to them. And I also must mention that back in 2004, Russia, so that's under President Putin, returned to China several islands on Amur River, and quite a few Russian patriots were quite upset that Russia is giving up those territories back to China. It's a complicated matter. Those islands, like right in the middle of Amur River, a lot of them like not really in the middle but towards the China, but Soviet Union took over it way back. So there's a complicated history between China and Russia, and I wouldn't be stating that emotionally people of China are always on Russia's side. So let's go back to this Chinese government explanation, Chinese fairy tale. More than 20 years ago, Ukraine got divorced from her husband, Russia, and they had several kids together. So that's quite an unusual twist. So apparently Russia was a husband and Ukraine was a wife. But in reality, if we're talking about collapse of the Soviet Union, then we have to say that Russia husband had 14 wives, right? All the other republics, and that was a massive divorce of his harem, and one of the wives was Ukraine. Okay, so ex-husband Russia was very generous and left his former wife a lot of stuff, and even paid off her debts of $200 billion. Here I actually had to look it up, and after the collapse of the Soviet Union back in 1991, the total debt of the Soviet Union and former, like older debt by Tsar Russia, which Soviet Union kind of canceled, was $96.6 billion. So there was no $200 billion, that's just Ukrainian debt. The total debt of the Soviet Union and Russian debt from before the revolution was $96.6 billion. And that debt was covered by Russia in exchange that all the other ex-wives will not have any claims on anything that belonged to Soviet Union abroad. So embassy buildings, anything that Soviet Union owned in the world that was exchanged, will pay off the debts and will take over all those buildings and stuff. After the divorce, ex-wife, which is Ukraine, started flirting with the foreign bad boy America, United States, and with the gang of thugs, which was NATO. The wife listened only to them and started harassing her ex-husband, What a bad girl. So husband got so mad and by force he took back one of his children, Crimea. Of course, ex-wife got pissed and announced that she will marry NATO in order to return her son Crimea back. My goodness, that's almost as good as a Days of Our Lives soap opera or something like that. But when it was time to make marriage official, American bad boy chickened out and didn't want to tie a knot, so he wouldn't get in the fight with this powerful ex-husband Russia. But he still planned to use stupid ex-wife Ukraine to humiliate ex-husband. Ex-wife Ukraine was actually a very bad mother, and she periodically was beating up her other children, Lugansk and Donetsk. Kids were crying and asking their father for help, who started helping a little bit here and there while arguing with his ex-wife. But to no avail, it was not helping much. The main criminal who initiated all this squabble, who was actually using up ex-wife in order to get to her inheritance, and as I'm talking about United States. So he pushed her to argue and fight with her ex-husband and actually gave her presents in the form of weapons, equipment, and uniforms, and other expired stuff. At some point, ex-wife decided that she has a protector that she could rely on and began acting really cocky or bitchy towards her ex-husband, trying to provoke him. And finally, Russia lost its patience. Together with its cousin Belarus, he started a fight to protect his children, Donetsk and Lugansk. So, quite interesting turn of the events right there. So that's talking February 24th, 2022, the dark day in the history of Ukraine. Suddenly, all the bad actors, Ukraine and NATO, got scared, and the main bad guy and hooligan, the United States, refused to continue arguing with the ex-husband and backed off. So now, the ex-wife was on her own. So currently, the husband is taking over his own children and belongings that he left earlier to his naughty ex-wife. End of the story. Okay, so that's how the Chinese government supposedly explained to its citizens about war in Ukraine. I have no way to confirm that it was an actual document. As I said, one of my Russian viewers sent me through the Russian social media, and I found it was kind of interesting just to translate it to you. I thought it was quite amazing, this basic explanation by divorce and naughty ex-wife and all that stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and I'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.
Потому что если дороги будут, то по ним неприятель проедет и прямо в сердце России попадет.
Я с ними согласен абсолютно.
Путин, веди войска. Часто используешь этот хэштег, но если ты желаешь втянуть Россию в войну, ответь для себя. Готов ли ты наблюдать за этой войной, не глядя в монитор, а своими глазами, сидя в окопе? Думаешь, до этого не дойдет? Ты ошибаешься. Спровоцировать вход российских войск на Украину – это важнейшая задача для Соединенных Штатов. Одна из целей США – списать крах экономики Украины на Россию. Давайте будем реалистами. Украину не возьмут в состав Евросоюза, а кредиты МВФ не помогут экономике восстановиться. Но как только на Украину войдет наша армия, Россию можно будет обвинить во всех бедах украинского народа. Ведь это из-за России перестали платить пенсии и пособия. Из-за России разрушена вся промышленность. Эта Россия забрала у украинцев их европейскую мечту. Конечно, можно выполнить требования диванных генералов и ввести войска. Но как это будет выглядеть для мирового сообщества? А вот как. Россия вводит войска без резолюции ООН на территорию независимой Украины. Правительство Украины Россию об этом не просит. А то правительство, которое просит, пока что никем не признано. Для мирового сообщества это будет называться одним словом – агрессия. А против агрессора Запад настроит весь мир. Станут ли союзники России поддерживать агрессора? Даже если мы просто введем бесполетную зону над юго-востоком Украины, американцы и НАТО могут ввести бесполетную зону уже для наших самолетов и ракет. Что если они собьют российский самолет? Как на это реагировать? Бросить танковые колонны к Ла-Маншу? Начать войну со всей Европой и Штатами, плюс Канадой и Австралией? Так ведь именно этого США и добивается. Америка задыхается от колоссального госдолга, который превышает $17 триллионов. Им срочно нужна большая война. Массовое банкротство компаний, крах держателей долговых расписок, схлопывание рынка ценных бумаг – это триллионы сгоревших виртуальных денег. Госдолг обнулится, ВПК и экономика Штатов получит новые заказы со всего мира. Это их шанс избежать неминуемое банкротство. России эта война не нужна. Оттягивание конфликта настолько укрепляет, но в Донбассе гибнут люди, и руководство России оказывается перед выбором: плохое решение или очень плохое. Погибнут сотни или погибнут сотни тысяч, а то и миллионы. Это страшный выбор, но такова реальная геополитика. И когда ты в очередной раз заявляешь, что Путин слил Юго-Восток, задумайся, к чему ты толкаешь свою страну. Если ты не готов с оружием в руках защищать интересы своей страны, хотя бы не нагнетай истерию. В геополитике нет места эмоциям.